Let's do it. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp. This is the show where we get down to the core reality. We don't mess only with that surface garbage. Just happening yesterday, the attempted coup in Bolivia, an attempted coup that was likely U.S. backed. We'll get into how we know that or why we suspect that. The coup was defeated, and there are a lot of details around that attempted coup. I also have information on some analysis on Jamal Bowman being defeated by a flood of Israel lobby money. As we know, they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to take out anyone who dare question Israel's right to genocide. Also, I will be talking about the Supreme Court decision showing that or saying that U.S. officials can be a little corrupt. You know, it's okay to take some bribes and be a little corrupt. Why? You know, why not? Why not take some money if you're in the ruling elite? I'll get into that decision, what exactly it says, and much more. I also have a special final thoughts at the end of the hour coming up for all of you. So take a second, click thumbs up, click share, click subscribe. We're fighting suppression every day, censorship every day. And that is why I need your help to keep this show going. But let's get into it. So down in Bolivia, one of the countries that the U.S. desperately wants to coup and desperately wants to destroy, there was a coup attempt, a likely U.S.-backed coup attempt just yesterday. And I'm going to read some of the details. Some of the details coming from a journalist in Bolivia. And here's what she had to say about it. She said on June 24th, so I guess this started a couple of days ago and then went up till 25th and 26th. But on June 24th, there was the then general of the army, the commander of the army, Juan Jose Zuniga, gave an interview in which he threatened to arrest Evo Morales. Evo Morales, the much beloved leftist leader, first indigenous president of Bolivia. Bolivia has a large percentage of indigenous in their country. And the head of the army was threatened to arrest Morales, who is likely to run again for president. The following day, Zuniga appeared publicly in an act as commander and seemed to deny. Oh, sorry, I skipped the fact that then the president, Arce, said that Zuniga would be dismissed. Basically, he's no longer commander of the military. The following day, Zuniga appeared publicly in an act as commander and seemed to deny his dismissal. On the morning of June 26th, the High Command of the Armed Forces ordered the barracking of the military. Around 2:30 p.m., military movements began in Plaza Murillo. It's the main square with the government headquarters in it, from where the executive power and the legislative assembly are exercised. Zuniga entered the Plaza Murillo in an armored vehicle and announced that he is taking over the executive and legislative branches. And later he contradicted himself and said that he did recognize President Luis Arce as the president. And she continues, by the way, her Twitter account is Camila Press. She says, today, meaning yesterday, was serious. If there is something to highlight, it's that all political forces opposing the government, from the left, Evo Morales, to the right, rejected a coup and called for mobilization against the military. This shows that nobody intends to shorten Luis Arce's mandate and that we all prefer to settle this within a year in national elections. However, we must say that there are elements and voices saying that it was a setup. Let's not forget that the Bolivian government is at its worst moment in terms of approval rating. So they have a low approval rating right now. Zuniga was arrested to be investigated, but justice must also reach out to the collaborators, etc. But something else that's very important that happened was basically as the coup was happening, Arce and others called on the Bolivian people to stand up against it, to fight back against it. And they did in a large way, which kind of put the writing on the wall for how this coup was going to go. This is, and I'll play a second of the audio as well. This is the mass of Bolivians outside the government buildings. So as you can see, he put out a call for the Bolivian people to defend their government, to defend their system, and they did in a large way. They came out in tens of thousands, if not more, and the coup did not go the way of the coup masters. And here's why: you don't have direct evidence, you don't have the smoking gun saying this is U.S. backed, but here's the reason you'd be fine to suspect that this is yet another U.S. at least facilitated, U.S. helped, U.S. encouraged moment in Bolivia. For one thing, the U.S. not that long ago succeeded in coupping Bolivia, and this is from The Guardian, which The Guardian is not that lefty an outlet. It has largely been captured, and it is mainstream media. But even they said 3 years ago, silence reigns on the U.S.-backed coup against Evo Morales in Bolivia. Morales was the first indigenous president of Bolivia, which has the largest percentage of indigenous population of any country in the Americas. His government was able to reduce poverty by 42%. And extreme poverty by 60%, which disproportionately benefited indigenous Bolivians. The November coup was led by a white and mestizo elite with a history of racism, seeking to revert state power to the people who had monopolized it before Morales' election in 2005. And the U.S. very much wants that white former oligarchy class back in power in Bolivia, because guess what? They sell everything to the U.S. corporations and to the U.S. empire. They privatize everything and sell it off, including lithium, one of the main natural resources that Bolivia has. And so that's great for the U.S. empire. You put in these people and then they sell all their shit. They sell everything the country has to the U.S. empire. To continue from the article, what has received even less attention is the role of the Organization of American States, OAS, in the destruction of Bolivia's democracy last November. The OAS, by the way, has largely been, over many years, has been captured by these pro-U.S. empire puppets. And so that's why you see the actual leftist governments in Latin America largely have pulled out of OAS, including Venezuela, and I believe Argentina, even though Argentina has now gone far right-wing, thanks to a U.S. Lawfare coup against the former leftist vice president. So Argentina is now hard right-wing under Milei because of U.S. meddling in their elections. As the New York Times reported on June 7th, this is 3 years ago, the organization OAS flawed analysis immediately following the October 20th election fueled a chain of events that changed the South American nation's history. The OAS allegations were indeed the main political foundation of the coup, and they continued for months. So basically, this U.S.-backed organization called OAS said that the election in Bolivia was false, and told everyone it was false, and the U.S. quickly jumped in to facilitate that, which then allowed for a far-right coup to take over Bolivia. And they held power for a year until ultimately the people were able to kick out the far-right coosters. Kicked them out on their coosters. The wheels of justice grind much too slowly in the aftermath of the U.S.-backed coups. And the Trump administration's support had been overt. The White House promoted the fraud narrative, and its Orwellian statement following the coup praised it. This is a quote from the Trump administration. Morales' departure preserves democracy and paves the way for the Bolivian people to have their voices heard. According to the Los Angeles Times, Carlos Trujillo, the U.S. ambassador to OAS, had steered the group's election monitoring team to report widespread fraud and push the Trump administration to support the ouster of Morales. So 3 years ago, or over 3 years ago, the U.S. facilitates a coup that it does crazy destruction to Bolivia. The far right wing comes into power thanks to that coup for a year. Ultimately, they're kicked out. And here's another coup attempt in Bolivia. And we don't know how much they were advised or facilitated by the U.S., but luckily this one was defeated. And this is not the first one that has kind of looked very similar like this, where the people stood up and defeated the coup. Another example was the coup against Chavez in Venezuela. I think 2002 it was. And it only lasted for 2 days. It was a U.S.-backed coup, took Chavez out of power. But after about a day or so, the people of Venezuela stood up and protested and got Chavez back into power. So here's another reason the U.S. may want Bolivia couped. Yet another reason. Bolivian President Arce, this is 2 weeks ago, met with Putin and is moving towards more Russian partnership. And he thanked Putin for Russian partnership. So there's yet another reason that the U.S. empire wants to destroy the lives of Bolivians and upend their democracy. Here's another reason, which I already mentioned, but it's always good to see the receipts. It's always good to see a little bit of proof. This is a top Pentagon official talking about what's going on in the area of Bolivia.
Is there anything that we haven't asked today that you could speak about that would help us help you?
Well, thank you, Congressman. It's really just the attention and the focus on this region and show that this region matters. This region is full of resources, and I worry about the malign activity of our adversaries taking advantage of that, looking like they're investing when they're really extracting. We have the lithium triangle in this region. 60% of the world's lithium, Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, have this. And it's taking resources away from these countries and from their people that are trying to deliver, these democracies that are trying to deliver for their people.
You said that 60% of the lithium in the world supply of lithium comes from South America. What percentage of that 60% is actually controlled by the PRC?
I don't have the answer.
He's asking how much of the lithium is controlled by China, because clearly we own these countries, right? U.S. just deserves to steal everything from these countries. And so this congressman is saying, China doesn't get any of this lithium, do they? Because it's ours to steal. It's our right to steal everything in Latin America. So I hope China isn't buying any of this lithium, because that's offensive, because they're buying the thing we rightfully steal most of the time.
Answer to that, but I could try to get that for you from one of our interagency partners.
Would you say it's a significant amount?
It's when you talk to the U.S. ambassadors for Chile and Argentina, and then the companies that are there, the aggressiveness of the PRC and the ground game that they have with the lithium is very advanced and very aggressive.
Yeah, look, I don't think that combating China, combating the PRC in South America, because I do believe that that's our greatest threat. It's just going to take military. It's going to be the military, although you all do a great job in the partnerships.
It's just going to take military. That's the congressman's answer is, well, if China's buying lithium from these countries and we want to steal it and they're not letting us steal it, well, then the answer must just be military. We just need to send military in and destroy these countries and steal their lithium. I don't understand why we haven't done that. Well, like, why hasn't that happened yet? And she's like, well, we have done it a lot over the past 100 years. But yeah, right now, Bolivia's not in our grasps. Luckily, we just fucked with Argentina and put in a right-wing maniac that has destroyed the lives of countless Argentinians. And he's willing to sell everything that Argentina has to us. So that's really exciting. Yeah, that's your Congress for you. These are just sociopaths talking to sociopaths. Don't you love when two sociopaths are chatting And so they can't even imagine what average humans are taking out of the conversation. It's like, she's like, well, they have a lot of lithium that we'd like to be stealing. And then he's like, why haven't we stolen it yet? And she's like, well, China's buying a lot of it. And he's like, well, we need to use the military and murder people. And she's like, we're working on it. We'll get on it. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable psychopathy, isn't it? Oh, I always say this country hit a fork in the road and we went the psychopath. Okay. Here is this again. If you're still questioning, and I don't know why you would, you'd have to be a little Looney Tunes to still be questioning. But if you're still questioning the U.S. drive to steal the resources of these other countries, including Bolivia, and by the way, there's also the famous quote from Elon Musk, where after we couped Bolivia the first time back in 2019, Elon Musk tweeted out, because people were criticizing him and talking about how much lithium is needed for Tesla cars and things like that. And Elon Musk's tweet was, we'll coup who we want to, get over it. So yeah, that's saying that the U.S. has no right to destroy the lives of other countries, right? That's what you want to hear from him. But in case you're still questioning the U.S. Desire, effort, whatever you want to call it, to steal other nations' resources, here is a completely sane and together and stable young whippersnapper named Lindsey Graham. This was just a few weeks ago on Face the Nation.
They're sitting on 10.
By the way, he's talking about Ukraine, not Bolivia, but still.
They're sitting on $10 to $12 trillion of critical minerals in Ukraine. They could be the richest country in all of Europe. I don't want to give that money and those assets to Putin to share with China. If we help Ukraine now, they can become the best business partner we ever dreamed of.
It's a gold mine, folks. Ukraine's a gold mine. Isn't that exciting to hear on national television? Listen, the reason we're in Ukraine is because we want to buy all their resources. We want to extract and steal all of their shit. And that's the real reason we're there, even though we run around telling everybody, oh, no, it's for the Ukrainian people. We want to help the Ukrainian people. No, really want to steal all the resources. So we've been working very hard on that. And I might as well throw this in here as long as we're on the topic of Latin America. The Venezuelan election is coming up not too long, in a few weeks. And the U.S. is also working very hard to make sure and rig, influence, screw up, finagle, shenanigando, which is a word I just made up, the elections in Venezuela. And Maduro has just asked candidates running for president or other offices to agree to accept electoral results. But a certain group has refused to accept electoral results, and that is the group that is U.S.-backed opposition, saying they will not accept the results. And in case you need a reminder, Venezuela has a far more legit election system than the U.S. does. Venezuela does not vote on black box machines that you can never check the code of, and you have no idea what is actually being done inside those machines. They have a far more legitimate, and these international observers have testified to this many times, that Venezuela has a far more legitimate election system than the United States, and yet their opposition says they will not accept the results from the election. Venezuela National Electoral Council proposed an agreement for the presidential candidates to acknowledge and respect the July 28th results. Maduro and 7 opposition candidates visited the CNE headquarters in Caracas and signed the 9-point document pledging to comply with the Constitution and electoral laws and recognize the electoral power. The third point specifically requested candidates to acknowledge that the CNE has consistently upheld electoral guarantees and accept the July results as the will of the people in accordance with the agreement signed on October 2023, February 2024. The 8 signatories also vowed to guarantee a democratically peaceful process, reject violence and destabilization, defend national sovereignty and self-determination. Since 2017, now why would they need these agreements? Well, since 2017, Venezuela has been targeted by many unilateral measures endorsed by some opposition sectors to overthrow the government. In the final paragraphs, the agreement also calls for rejecting and denouncing any financing from illicit sources, which of course is what the U.S. does, right? We are illicitly financing the opposition, Juan Guaido, etc. In 2013, presidential vote where Maduro narrowly defeated Capriles, the hardline opposition did not recognize the electoral results and unleashed violent street protests in an effort to overturn the outcome. In 2018, the U.S.-backed opposition boycotted the presidential vote, instead pursuing a regime change strategy that self-proclaimed interim government led by little-known lawmaker Juan Guaido, who had never received a single vote for president. The following year, the U.S. government imposed an oil blockade and seized Venezuela's oil subsidiary, Citgo. So the U.S. is yet again doing everything that they can to rig the upcoming election in Venezuela because they want to get, similar to Bolivia, almost the same as Bolivia, they want to get the mostly whiter former oligarchy of that country, the ruling elite of Venezuela, back into power so they can sell off Venezuela's resources to the United States, and also so they can stop being the threat of the good example. They can stop having socialist aspects to their system, such as healthcare and education, etc. So there's multiple reasons. And then, of course, there's the fact that they have so much oil. Venezuela does. Multiple reasons the U.S. wants to destroy their country, harm all the people, and follow the psychopath. It's a fork in the road. We're taking the psychopath. All right, I'm going to get on to how the Israel lobby has just destroyed, taken down, wiggity-whacked, to put it in technical terms, one of the people who showed even the slightest desire to hold Israel accountable for their war crimes, for their genocide, Jamal Bowman. This does not mean Jamal Bowman is great and awesome and amazingly progressive. We'll get to that in a moment. But he had some comments here and there that did not align with yay, genocide, Israel, yay, go Israel for genocide, yay. And for that, they targeted him and they have now defeated him. This is from Rolling Stone. Jamal Bowman loses seat after pro-Israel lobby boosted opponent to the tune of millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. The race between Bowman and Latimer was the most expensive in the history of the House of Representatives. And I would love to know, I haven't seen it yet, I would love to know the proportion of the amount of money flooding to Latimer versus Bowman. I would imagine that far more was spent for his opponent than was spent by Bowman. But this goes to show that you can't even be slightly in favor of holding Israel accountable, or you will be targeted and tens of millions of dollars will be spent, sometimes more, to get you out of office. And they succeeded in this case. But I also want to remind everyone that where is it? That Bowman is not some kind of hardcore leftist. As the always amazing Shama Shawant says, she tweeted out, squad member Jamal Bowman's defeat is a cautionary tale for the left and certainly for socialists about what can happen when leaders break their promises to the working class. Bowman voted to fund the Israel State Iron Dome project. So, not amazing, Bowman. With the rest of the squad, he voted to block railroad workers' strike. And he refused to fight for the $15 wage or Medicare for all. And she adds, working people are fed up with being sold out. We need a party of our own, rooted in fighting mass movements. But these are good points because it it shows how you don't even have to be 100% pro-Palestinian, 100% against Israel. You can even be someone who votes to fund their Iron Dome system in Israel, votes to fund their efforts to commit this genocide, if you at other times vote against Israel in one way or another, or make statements that say Israel should be held accountable for what's going on in Gaza. Those type of things will, all of a sudden, you are now being targeted by millions upon millions of dollars. AIPAC alone, which is just one of the Israel lobby, one group, AIPAC alone said they were, or no, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was the Israel lobby in general, but either way, the Israel lobby said they were spending $100 million on these races to take down the tiny, it's a handful of people. It's not many in our government, in Congress, that actually care about Palestinian people even slightly. It's a tiny number. And the Israel lobby is spending $100 million to get them out, which shows what an insane lock they have on our system, on our government. The Israel lobby does, and that's not anti-Semitic. I'll tell you that. Coming from a Jew, that's just facts. That's just facts of the amount of money being spent on our government to rig our government. Okay, let's get on to the Supreme Court. It just said that corruption is fine. But I do want to take a minute to say thank you, everybody who supports this show, who throws in a couple of dollars on the super chats. Maybe we get a couple of super chats rolling. You guys honestly keep this show going, and I can't thank you enough. Couple other announcements. Los Angeles, I'll be coming to perform live in July 11th. On July 11th, I'll be doing stand-up. We'll also be taping an episode of Government Secrets. So if you want to come to the July 11th show in Los Angeles, go to leecamp.com/schedule, and that's where you can get tickets for that. Also, I know a lot of you like podcasts, and I don't highlight this enough, but for those of you who like listen to podcasts sometimes, might be driving around, whatever it is, might be going running. Pretty much everything I do is also a podcast. If you go into Spotify, or you go into Apple Podcasts, or wherever you go, if you type in Lee Camp, you'll probably find one of my shows pretty quickly. There's the Lee Camp Show, Moment of Clarity. Moment of Clarity is the Lee Camp Show. They just have different names. Long story about being censored and having my show deleted. But then you also got Government Secrets. You also got Common Censored. So just type in Lee Camp into your podcast place, and you should find some of my stuff. Thank you, Self-Care Maven, for pointing out that Locals is where the cool kids hang out. Locals is my support community. To become a member over there, go to leecamp.net. That will forward you to Locals, and you can become a member for $6, a whopping $6 a month. We'll get you a membership over there. So thank you again, Self-Care Maven. And thank you for your self-care as well. Okay. And Sherry says she is actually listening or watching live while she's speed walking, doing her workout. I like it. Don't miss an episode. You can use me to work out too. Since I have so much anger, I feel like it should be good for working out, you know? Like, fuck these people. Fuck the Israel lobby. We're rigging our goddamn elections, which are rigged in like 100 different ways. So it's just one of the many. I have a new episode, should be out in a couple of weeks, with breakthrough news about just how bought off our electoral system is. I feel like it's even more than you realize. Even more than you realize. And for those of you who are interested in the train wreck that's supposed to happen tonight, I think 9 p.m. Eastern, Trump and Biden, the amazing waiting list for a racist elder care facility that we get for a presidential election. It's exciting to see. I will probably be doing a little special episode of that tomorrow, early-ish. I don't have the exact time yet, but about what went down in that debate. And I'm sure it won't be a debate. I'm sure it'll just be a train wreck. Just They've gotten rid of the audience, which is a nice symbolism, right? For the fact that we the oligarchs no longer care at all about the American people, whether it be Joe Biden or Donald Trump or any of them. So why not just not have them in the room? Let's just not have. There will be no one in that room. The presidential candidates, the two CNN hosts asking the questions. There will be no one in that room who's not a millionaire or above, a multi-millionaire or above. As the only people allowed in that room, which is the symbolism is great. It really is. But I'll be doing some kind of review of that coming up tomorrow. So if you want some sort of review of it tomorrow, check out my YouTube or my Rumble, rumble.com/LeeCamp. Okay. Let's get to the Supreme Court has said our ruling elite get to be a little corrupt. Can be a little bit corrupt, This is over at Vox, which is a neoliberal outlet, but you know, they'll cover things like this. The Supreme Court rules that state officials can engage in a little corruption as a treat. As a treat, here and there. Why not a little corruption? The Supreme Court ruled on Wednesday that state officials may accept quote-unquote gratuities from people who wish to reward them for their official actions. So if you do something for me in the State House, I can then give you a big old check or a bag of money, and it's fine. It's not illegal anymore. It continues that they can do that despite a federal anti-corruption statute that appears to ban such rewards. Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote the opinion in Snyder versus the United States for the court's Republican-appointed majority. Snyder turns on a distinction between bribes and gratuities. Oh, yeah, completely different things, right? If you bribe someone after the shit goes down, that is not a bribe anymore, right? If you say, will you murder my neighbor's dog because he's loud and barks a lot, and I will pay you $10,000 to do that, but I'm not going to give it to you until you do it because I don't want you to run off with the money. So you go do it, then I'll give you the money. And the guy goes and does it, murders a dog, and then you give him a bag of money. That's apparently not a bribe or payment anymore. Nope, totally legit. It's just a tip. It's just a little howdy do ya. No big deal. Snyder turns on the distinction between bribes and gratuities. As Kavanaugh writes, bribes are payments made or agreed to before an official act in order to influence the official with respect to that future official act. Gratuities, by contrast, are totally different. They're, quote, are typically payments made to an official after an official act as a token of appreciation. I also love how they pretend that the difference is they're not telling them to do it. They just did the thing. They just did the thing for corporate whatever. They gave a giant government bid contract to a big bank or an oil company. And that oil company gave them a bunch of money afterwards. And there was no agreement. They had no idea they were going to get tipped tens of thousands of dollars. The article continues, if that seems like a negligible difference, the facts of this case will probably only underscore the sentiment. The case involves James Snyder, a former mayor who accepted $13,000 as a gratuity, right? It was just a tip. I often leave $13,000 as a tip at like a Waffle House, if you get good service. Like if the waitress called me dear, like they like to do, and then she brought me an extra fork because I dropped one on the floor. $13,000, no problem. No problem tip. $13,000 gratuity from a truck company after the city purchased 5 trash trucks from the company for $1.1 million. Snyder claims that the money was a consulting fee, but federal prosecutors nonetheless charged him with violating an anti-corruption statute. What? All I did was give him $13,000 after he gave me a giant contract. What corruption? What are you talking about? Corruption. The statute prohibits state officials from corruptly accepting anything of value from any person intending to be influenced or rewarded, keyword, for an official act. Boy, a giant gratuity. Sounds like a reward to me, doesn't it? As Jackson writes in her dissent, the most natural reading of the statute is that it targets both bribes, payments that influenced a future decision, and gratuities, payments that rewarded a past decision. Yeah, you think? But here's the thing. I often say to people that this show, we try and get down to the core reality of the story rather than just the surface stuff. I'm sure, as is Vox, plenty of people talking about this story, saying, oh my God, Supreme Court allowing corruption. Well, here's the core reality. The corruption they're allowing with this Supreme Court decision is just a fraction of how egregiously corrupt our system is. However, all of it is legal, or most of it, and now even more of it's legal. But even before the Supreme Court decision, you have Congress doing insider trading. For some reason, Congress's percentage return on stocks is just way higher than the general public. I wonder why that is. You have Congress aligning with Wall Street in times of moments, and the shock doctrine is used to just pump trillions of dollars into Wall Street. During the pandemic, $4.5 trillion thrown at Wall Street. During the banking collapse, all the big banks bailed out. All of this is corruption. All of this is the corporatocracy owning the system and paying themselves billions upon billions of dollars. The $1 trillion that goes to the military money laundering machinery and then is pumped in to the hands of contractors. That's all corruption. It's just legal in our system. So as people may talk about this one story about how the Supreme Court is allowing a certain level of corruption, we are already one of the most corrupt places on earth. And I'd say that's probably level 2 or 3 of this story. If you want to have 4 levels of reality, you want to get down to the 4 levels of reality. For those who don't know, I will often talk about the 4 levels of reality. I don't generally get down to like the 6th level where we're all just energy waves and it's silly to even talk to each other because you're just energy waves talking to each other. And you're really part of the same energy wave structure. So really I am you and you are me. And so this is all, it's all just a simulation that we're kind of interpreting. Anyway, you get the point. I'm not going to go that deep, but I will go to the point where this corruption also has a lot to do with the incentive structure of capitalism, of market economics. You have everybody, every company, every corporation out for themselves, out for money, not out to help the system. There is no real regard for helping people in general. No one, even in the way we talk to each other, if you ask, someone what they do that they're proud of, what'd you do in the last few weeks that they're proud of, or last few months, most people, and maybe not you guys because you're awesome, but most people are going to be like, oh, I made a bunch of money doing this. I sold a bunch of things doing that. I worked up the ladder higher in my company so I can be at a higher position and have more people below me. That's what we talk about as achievements. Most people don't generally talk about, oh, I helped some people. I went down to the soup kitchen. I know that's the stereotypical version. I don't even know if we still have soup kitchens. What do we know? We just fire a plastic wrap sandwich out of a T-shirt cannon at homeless people. I think that's what we do now. But it's the motivations of the system, and you get down to that level, and that is why we have such an egregiously corrupt system, is because this is how we consider success, right? These are the successful people are the ones who get giant contracts with the government and bribe the government with $13,000 as a little thank you. Just a little thank you for giving us that giant contract. Of course, the Supreme Court is also a corrupt entity, and in many ways, and they would never, all of them, 9-0, they would never do anything that would get in the way of the capitalist system eating everything until it kills itself. It's like cancer, Mick wants me to know. Yes, we do have soup kitchens, even in Baltimore. I know, Mick. I was kidding, but yes. And then Katie points out that you can get arrested for feeding people, depending on which state you're in. Sure enough, Florida I know is one of them that will arrest you for feeding people who are struggling, which really shows the motivations of our system, how our system. Meanwhile, though, you're allowed to bribe. Thank goodness the Supreme Court solved that problem. Are we allowed to bribe officials? Yes. Just don't give them money till after they do the thing. It's better that way. Okay, let's move on to how the Biden administration is now moving to allow U.S. military contractors in Ukraine. Boy, every day it sounds a little more like the U.S. is at war with Russia in Ukraine. Doesn't it? Doesn't it sound a little like that? Honestly, how can you... U.S. military contractors on the ground in Ukraine fighting Russians with U.S. weapons that are being told how to point them, where to point them, the strategy. It's all being controlled by the United States. This doesn't sound like a proxy war anymore. This just sounds like a war, which of course puts us even closer to nuclear Armageddon, which thanks a lot for that, Joe Biden. But of course, it's also Donald Trump will be doing the same, I'm sure. But it's just amazing that they still expect people to believe that the U.S. is not at war with Russia and Ukraine. They're talking about putting U.S. mercenaries on the ground in Ukraine. Like, how about this? How about we send the U.S. military into Ukraine and we just don't have them wear military uniforms? They just have, tap out T-shirts on, and they're wearing Crocs on their feet. Because if they're not dressed like the U.S. military, then that's fine. That doesn't count as war, right? If they're dressed different and they don't have the little funny badges that say, I'm a big military man, then that's fine. That's not boots on the ground. Like, how close do you need to get to the U.S. fighting Russia in Ukraine for it to be counted as the U.S. fighting Russia in Ukraine? Biden administration moving to put U.S. military contractors in Ukraine. That's from CNN. Great. Awesome. Excited. It's just every day, these maniacs get worse and worse. Someone says locals is not working. Is that true? Oh, I guess it is. Sorry, guys. I don't know why that would be. I don't know why. I don't know why locals is not running. I am very sorry about that. I got to figure that out. Anyway. All right. Let's get to this awesome protest. Oh, I also just wanted to say this. This is for our to-do list, yours and mine. This is a hell of a couple of weeks. On the top of my to-do list was free Julian Assange. Check. Number 2 on the to-do list was end the petrodollar deal with Saudi Arabia. So check. And all we have left on the to-do list is free Palestine. So yeah, we're 2 out of 3, I think, and we can do 3. We can get it done. All right. I just wanted to show this protest. I love showing protests against Israel that are going well. And just watching students stand up, young people stand up and protest, just awesome. It's just amazing. Good for them. This is Harvard. This is students graduating from Harvard Law School, Divinity School, Medical School, Graduate School of Education, Business School. All of those had students dropping banners as they walked. Large banners that said, that one said Harvard legalizes genocide. This one says free Palestine. That said Nakba never ended and has bloody handprints on it. Stop the genocide. Divest from settler colonialism. 35,000 killed. Free Palestine. It's just awesome. And the officials have to just sit there and take it. Have to just sit there and do nothing as they are part of an institution that is funding genocide every day. And it's just awesome. Good for them. Good for those students. Keep up the protests. And I really hope that the protests continue next year, even though the summer interrupts, obviously, these protests. But I hope they all continue in these schools. Okay, speaking of Israel, let's get to this amazing video. Amazing video. I think it is the first time the U.S. government has been asked about the Hannibal Directive. The directive in the in the Israeli government and Israeli military, where Israel is told, the military is told to murder their own civilians, to murder the hostages, to murder the hostage takers, and to murder anyone in the vicinity. That is the directive that came down from Israel on October 7th. Basically, just murder everyone. And they sure as hell did. And here is the U.S. government, I think, asked about this for the first time. And the reporter asking is Sam Husseini, who does great work. And he's asking the Gargamel goon, Matt Miller, spokesperson for the State Department.
You talk about the hostages. Israel has a Hannibal Directive in which...
Hold on. I got that playing fast.
You talk about the hostages. Israel has a Hannibal Directive in which it has orders in place to kill at least its own soldiers, lest they fall into the hands of Palestinian groups. And there's substantial reporting that in fact, was utilized on October 7th, not just against Israeli soldiers, but against civilians. Are we not now in a situation where Israel may be using the Hannibal Directive, not just on Israelis, civilians and military, but on U.S. citizens and other foreign nationals?
So I am not familiar in any way with either that supposed directive or those reports. And so
you've never heard of the Hannibal?
Certainly would not want to comment on it.
You've never heard of the Hannibal
John,
Directive?
I thought you wanted to go out of the region.
Sure.
This is, and for those of you listening to the podcast, while he's asking this question, you see the Hannibal Directive headlines from mainstream outlets. This is covered. These are even Israeli propaganda newspapers have covered the Hannibal Directive. It's in the Jerusalem Post. It's been in L'Orient Today. It's been in Haaretz, another Israeli newspaper. The Telegraph. Israel killed own citizens on October 7th in the Hannibal Directive. The UN claims. Mondovais. Another Israeli soldier admits to implementing the Hannibal Directive. And one of those is mentioning the UN report that said Israel used the Hannibal Directive. So it's not like it's only me, little old me, and Dangerous Ideas talking about the Hannibal Directive. It has been everywhere if you don't have your head up your ass. And here is Matthew Miller at the State Department saying, I've never heard of it. I don't know what you're talking about. What? Hannibal what? Who? Silence of the Lambs? What are you talking about? I don't know anything. I never heard it. Sorry, I just want to hear him say this one more time.
Civilians. Are we not now in a situation where Israel may be using the Hannibal Directive, not just on Israelis, civilians and military, but on U.S. citizens and other foreign nationals?
So I am not familiar in any way with either that supposed directive or those reports. And so
you've never heard of the Hannibal?
Certainly would not want to comment on it.
You've never heard of the Hannibal Directive?
I have never heard of that supposed directive. I do not. Who? I do. It's as if someone asked him about, are you going to keep standing by and allowing Israel to commit genocide? It's been 5 days of genocide. Are you going to stand by and just keep allowing this? And our State Department's like, I have not heard of any genocide. I don't know what you're talking about. I also I don't even know the word genocide. Jenna what? Jenna who? Is that I'm unfamiliar? Is genocide or one of the things offered at Starbucks? Because I do know Starbucks does support genocide. So is genocide or one of the does support the thing I've never heard of. So I don't know. Never heard of it. I mean, I swear the propaganda is getting worse. Don't you feel like it's getting worse? Don't you feel like they're just lying? They're not even bothering to lie to us. They're like, we don't even know what you're talking about. We don't even. I mean, they are lying to us, but they're not bothering to come up with a good lie. It's just never heard of it. Don't even know. That's unbelievable. Okay, I want to do one more story before I get to my final thoughts. The comedy segment I'm going to be ending some of the shows with nowadays. Comedy rant. But let's do one more story. And again, to those of you regulars at Locals, you guys keep this show going, so please don't give up on Locals. But I don't know why it didn't live stream today. I'm going to make sure and fix it in the future, I hope. So, and those of you who want to support this show, become a member at leecamp.net over at Locals, because you also get, for signing up at Locals, you get my ebook, Dangerous Ideas. You get my comedy special. Zoom comedy special, Laughing All the Way to the Shitstorm. You get live streams, you get special segments, you get all kinds of stuff. So I hope you will sign up over there. Okay. One more story before we get to final thoughts. I don't usually bother to spend that much time on how horrific and ridiculous a president Donald Trump was, because I just kind of assume that if you watch this show, you already know that. I'm hoping you already understand that, because you have to be so fact light. Is that a nice way of saying that? You have to be so ignorant of what went on in the world to not know what a tragedy of a human being Donald Trump is. But that being, and so I spend more time on how horrific Joe Biden is, because I find that a lot of people on, we'll call it the light left, we'll call it, the light left, including the center, such as liberals. A lot of those people think that, oh, Trump is bad and therefore Biden must be good, so I'll just support Biden. End of story. Closing brain closing. Chick, 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 chick. Like one of those metal gates that when a store is closing and you're like, wait, can I just buy one thing? And they're like, sorry. And it's just like brain closing. Chick, 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 chick. I find that more often. So I feel like that's the thing that needs more debunking. So I do not spend a lot of time on how horrific of a human being and a president and all of the things Donald Trump is. But I figured I might as well throw this one in here because it's also kind of funny. A watchdog group has put out memos that show that Trump, after, put out a report, show that Trump was utterly indifferent to the public interest. Yeah, you think? In his first term. New reports called retrospective memos show that Trump's executive branch was rife with cronyism, corruption, and now they can do their corruption even better because the Supreme Court just said so, and corporate influence from 2017 until 2021. RDP, a watchdog group focused on the executive branch, released the reports. Quote, Donald Trump's most important legacy as president wasn't what he said or even what bills he signed, but how he turned the federal government into a favor machine to benefit his family and cronies. Now, here's where they get wrong. The federal government was already a crony machine. It was already a benefit machine for corporate America and the ruling elite. It's been that way for decades. Maybe it's been that way the entire time, but we'll go with for decades, but probably the entire time. A favor machine. The difference that they're pointing to is that there was more of his family involved in it. So there's more of that kind of nepotism involved, and other cronies. He did it more. His corruption was more out it was more full frontal. It was more in your face corruption, whereas the ongoing corruption of the US government is slightly more hidden. Here's another quote. It's important to revisit how poorly he ran the executive branch his first time around. In many cases, Trump appointees were hostile to the original aims of the agencies they served. So this is a very slight difference, a minimal difference in the way Trump ran these agencies versus the way like a Biden or Obama would run them. Most of these agencies, their job is to give the guise, give the appearance, give the theater of protecting the American people, helping the American people. Things like the EPA and the FCC, the FEC, the SEC. Their job is to make the American people think that there is something looking out for them, something that actually makes the powerful people in the world play by the rules, not just dump toxins into your river willy-nilly. And so at times, these agencies will occasionally do their job and actually hold a company slightly accountable. But for the company, it's usually viewed as a parking ticket. You know, it's not really that much difference. And so that's how it works all the time. That's just all the time. The difference with Trump was that he would put people in at these agencies that didn't even want to do the theater of caring about the American people. They instead were put in at these agencies to destroy said agency, which is only a very slight difference. So he put someone in, Betsy DeVos, he put in at the top of education, and she hates education. She wants to destroy all public education and only have charter schools where the richer, the people in America can educate their children, and the poorer people in America just get essentially zero education. So her goal was to destroy the Department of Education. And again, this is a very slight difference. It's not as none of these people are out to help us or help average Americans. They continue, though, in the article about being hostile to the agencies they're running. The guy he put in at the head of the Postal Service his effort was to destroy the Postal Service. There's an example of an agency, Postal Service, that actually runs pretty well, right? You could still send a letter across the country for what, 50 cents? It's amazing. But literally, they're trying to destroy it. They're trying to bankrupt it so that they can replace it with the corporate entities like UPS and FedEx and stuff. To continue from the article on Common Dreams, Mick Mulvaney, Trump's choice to lead the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was only created a few years ago, right? I mean, and it was basically created and functioned for like a second before they were like, oh yeah, we got to destroy that thing. Mick Mulvaney tried to roll back rules limiting predatory payday lending, a practice that preys on the working poor. Payday lending is incredibly predatory. Many of you may already know this. It's almost exclusively poor people that use payday lending, because if you aren't rather poor, then you don't need an advance on your paycheck. And so you go in and you take your paycheck. Let's say your paycheck's $1,000, but it would take several days to get it, right? You put it in a bank. The bank has to get the money, etc. So you go into the payday lending. You say you show them the paycheck or the pay stub. They give you an advance of the $1,000. They say, sure, here's that $1,000, minus a certain cut for them. But as basically the poor people aren't able to pay back that $1,000 very quickly, because they don't have money. That's kind of like why they went there in the first place. I mean, it's a completely rigged system. So they can't pay it back very quickly. The interest is insane. And then when they try and pay it back, the company has a lot of ways of stopping them from paying it back, of basically making it impossible. You go in to pay the $1,000. Finally, this person has $1,000 to pay back the loan. And the company goes, okay, well, now it's $2,000 because you owe all the interest. And they try and get the $2,000. They say, well, now it's $3,000. So you can pay back the first $2,000, but then you still have $1,000. And by next week, that'll be $2,000. it runs away quick. And then all of a sudden the person owes $50,000 and they make $1,000 a week or a month or whatever. Anyway, so Mick Mulvaney tried to gut the Consumer Protection Agency. Trump's Interior Department advanced the interest of extractivist industry on public lands. Oh yeah, I wanted to show this one other article in a second, but extractivist industry on public lands while refusing to account for how its actions would worsen climate change. The Trump administration auctioned off over 10 million acres of land and water to oil and gas drilling, including by drastically reducing the size of national monuments like Bears Ears in Utah, a sacred homeland to 5 tribal nations, in order to open them up to development. So obviously that's horrific. He took the Interior, Department of Interior, and just made public lands that are not supposed to be given to drilling. He gave them away to drilling. Awful. Well, here's what Biden did to show that they're very different, right? These are very different administrations, Republicans and Democrats. Biden, the Biden administration, oil drilling permits outpaced Donald Trump. Biden allowed for more oil drilling permits than Trump. President Joe Biden has approved nearly 50% more oil and gas drilling permits for wells on federal land, public land, since taking office than President Trump did in his first 3 years, according to newly released data from the Interior Department. So you have Trump trying to destroy these entities, and you just have Biden maybe not quite trying to destroy the entities, but going ahead and doing the horrible things anyway. Honestly, it's like tomato, the way these lunatics extract and destroy our country and our lives. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, run by former presidential candidate Ben Carson, was plagued by handouts to friends and family, a series of deadly budget cuts proposals, and a war on fair housing. So he put someone in charge of the Department of Housing whose goal it was to destroy public housing. And like I said, the difference is that Trump wanted to destroy these agencies along with people around him. By the Biden administration, and not Biden himself, he's over trying to chew on his elbow somewhere, but the Biden administration in general, or liberals in general, the liberal government, maybe not liberals across the nation, but the liberal government, they understand that this stuff is theater. The housing and urban development to help people get housing is largely theater. And the theater is good for allowing the ruling elite to continue to extract everything out of us, extract our lives out of us. That theater is good because it makes average people across the country not know or not notice the extraction as much. Fewer people notice that Joe Biden allowed more oil drilling than Donald Trump because of the words and the statements and the fact that the Interior Department doesn't it have a Native American as the head of it now? It's all a guise. It's all a show. It's all a charade. It's all theater. It's all marionette puppetry. It's all puppetry of the penis. By the way, that's a real show. Have you heard of that? Okay. I'm giving you a longer than normal episode. I hope you will throw 38 cents my way as a thank you for this longer than normal episode. I am now going to do a final thoughts. This is a new comedy segment. I'm going to try and wrap up a bunch of the hours with. I'm not going to say I bring it to you every hour, but every live stream. But this final thoughts is, and by the way, July 11th, Los Angeles. This final thoughts is it's the same topic that I had on government secrets this week, but you'll see there's a lot new to it. So even if you saw government secrets, this is hopefully you'll still enjoy this. And if you want to see my last final thoughts, that is at youtube.com/moment of clarity or youtube.com/@realleecamp. Okay. Final thoughts. And by the way, final thoughts never have anything to do with the rest of the episode. Well, sometimes I do. Final thoughts. There's something we need to talk about. And you know what it is. You know what I'm about to say, right? Thomas Edison. He is America's greatest inventor, right? Isn't he? He invented everything. The light bulb, the typewriter, the idea of promoting yourself as America's greatest inventor while actually inventing nothing. He came up with that. That's pretty incredible. Did you know that? That's pretty incredible, isn't it? Did you know? Our history books are quite kind to Tommy Eddy, as only I call him. If you look at our history books, they act like Tommy Eddy was the Bill Gates of the 1800s. But in truth, he didn't invent a goddamn thing. He was just a rich, corrupt thief. So wait. Oh, he was just like Bill Gates. I'm sorry. I forgot. It's exactly like Bill Gates. I was thinking of someone else. Maybe one of the Golden Girls? Can't remember. What do you think Edison invented? Anyone who wants to argue with me, what did Edison invent? Huh? Go ahead. Tell me. I'll wait. You got nothing. You got nothing. The light bulb? Nope. Sorry. Electric lighting devices were invented as early as 1800. Then Alessandro Volta developed ways to generate electricity in arcs of light. And you can't deny that he did that because Volt's in his name. Okay, it's in his goddamn name. We named the Volt after him to try and remind ourselves, hey, don't forget about Alessandro, that he invented this shit. And we forgot anyway. We still give Edison credit. It would be like if I invented fat camps, right? It's right there in my name. But I suppose nowadays they'd be called body positivity camps. But then why have them, though, is the question. Welcome to camp. We want you to be positive about your body. But also we're going to scream at you on a treadmill for a month until you have less body to be positive about. Get started. Hurry. This is why your mother doesn't love you. I don't know if body positivity camps are going to work, honestly. Anyway, several scientists continue to improve the light bulb. And scientist Joseph Swan came up with a light bulb that had a carbon filament. So Edison didn't even invent that. So all Edison did was take an invention that was already existing and made it last a little longer. Oh, big deal. It's like if you invented toilet paper and then I just came out with a larger roll. And I was like, yeah, I invented toilet paper, bitches. Your ass don't stink thanks to me. I want a statue of my face in the middle of town. Put it next to the manure factory. The smell will bring it back. What else do you think Edison invented? X-rays? Nope. That was done by Wilhelm Röntgen. But Edison's assistant, Clarence Daly, did die of skin cancer caused by X-ray test he was told to do by Edison. So I guess you could say Edison did invent something. He invented a way to get away with murdering your assistant. That's big. That's something big. Okay, what else you got? The typewriter? Edison typewriter, right? Nope. That was one of the few inventions Edison didn't even try and take credit for. He said in an interview, quote, Scholz invented the typewriter. I did practically nothing to improve the machine, unquote. But the typewriter's lame anyway. Have you ever seen one of those things? Have you ever tried one? It doesn't even have emojis. It doesn't even have the porn. There's not even porn on it. I take that back. I did see typewriter porn once. It was just the letter T hyphenating the letter Q. It's very, very dirty stuff. All right, what else you got? The electric chair? Nope. Not that one either. He did, however, fund the creation of the electric chair so that he could use alternating current to murder a person, to murder a prisoner. And then he could say to the newspapers, look, Nikola Tesla's alternating current kills people. Everyone should use my direct current. Now, it didn't actually work because everyone read those newspapers and they just thought electricity kills people. And so it really kind of backfired. But I will say the overall concept was genius. Take your enemy's invention, that your competitor's invention, and use it to murder someone, and then tell all the papers to talk about how the invention murdered people. Like, why doesn't Apple create a gun that just fires Samsung phones at people? And then put in the newspaper, Samsung phones killed 32 people this weekend. Why doesn't Arby's go around beating people to death with double Big Macs? You know, and then just huge ads. McDonald's kills 14 on Tuesday alone. I mean, McDonald's does kill a lot of people, but it's diabetes. That's not as exciting. Point being, Thomas Edison was a genius. It's time we all admitted it. He lied, he cheated, and he stole his way to the top. What's more American than that? You know? It's America. All right. There are my final thoughts. I will see you tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, right here. I also will likely be doing a special live stream tomorrow morning or midday to talk about what happened in this godforsaken debate. We'll see. I don't make any promises. But see you tomorrow. I'll be joined by Eleanor Goldfield, and keep fighting.